World Today. Secession and treason. The number of confirmed coronavirus cases worldwide since the outbreak began passes 5 million plus. Cyclone Hanfan kills at least 84 people across India and Bangladesh. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shobowale. We're beginning in Hong Kong as China proposes to introduce a new security law in the administrative region which could ban sedition, secession and treason. It's a move that could provoke further strong opposition within Hong Kong and internationally and trigger protests like the ones experienced last year. The law will be debated on Friday by the National People's Congress, that's China's legislature. Hong Kong's mini-constitution requires it to bring in such a law, but it failed to do so amid widespread opposition. The so-called Basic Law was introduced when the UK handed back Hong Kong's sovereignty to China in 1997 and provides certain freedoms not available on the mainland. Let's turn to the latest on the coronavirus pandemic now. In a grim milestone, over 5 million people have now been infected by the coronavirus worldwide. More than 328,000 people have also died of COVID-19, while 1.9 million have recovered. The US remains the worst-hit country with more than 1.5 million cases and 93,000 deaths so far. 5 months after the first reported case of COVID-19 in the Chinese city of Wuhan last December, there are now more than 5 million cases worldwide. The United States, Russia and Brazil have emerged as the countries with the highest number of confirmed cases, while cases in China have dwindled, with the country reporting its lowest number of new coronavirus patients since January. The number of those infected with coronavirus in Africa is nearing the 100,000 mark, and South Africa, with over 18,000 cases, tops the infection list. But health experts in the country are projecting that the country could see up to 50,000 coronavirus deaths and as many as 3 million infections by the end of the year. Meanwhile, a 2-day-old baby has died with coronavirus in South Africa, one of the world's youngest victims of the virus. The mother had tested positive for COVID-19, and the child subsequently tested positive. The country's health minister says the baby was born prematurely and needed help with breathing. Over in the UK, as the country deals with technical issues on its Track and Trace app, the NHS Confederation warns that the country is running out of time. It follows Prime Minister Boris Johnson's pledge to introduce a world-beaten contact tracing system in England from June. And finally, as the race for a cure continues, a trial to see whether 2 anti-malarial drugs could prevent COVID-19 has begun in Brighton and Oxford. Chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine or a placebo will be given to more than 40,000 healthcare workers from Europe, Africa, Asia and South America. All the participants are staff who are in contact with COVID-19 patients. Now, international charity Médecins Sans Frontières has raised the alarm over what it calls a catastrophe unfolding in its COVID-19 treatment center in Aden, southern Yemen. MSF says in the first half of May, the center admitted 173 patients, of whom at least 68 died. The organization adds that many who reach the center are already severely sick, which makes it hard to save their lives. It's feared the number of cases in the country may be far higher than reported. According to Johns Hopkins University, there are only 30 deaths in the country and 184 confirmed cases. MSF believes it's only seen a small proportion of those people sick and dying in the region. The country's health system has been damaged by years of civil war and ventilators are in short supply. Well, over in the United States, out of the 1.58 million people who have contracted the coronavirus, the state of New York ranks top on the list of states with nearly 23,000 deaths, followed by New Jersey with over 149,000 cases, over 10,000 deaths, and Illinois with over 98,000 cases and over 4,300 deaths. Interestingly, all 50 U.S. states have partially reopened following a 2-month lockdown. Across the country, it appears there is an overall downward trend in new cases and deaths over time, with states such as New York, New Jersey and Washington now showing sharpest declines, while majority of states have reached plateaus. Well, our correspondent Maria Bird joins us now on the program to bring us up to speed on the situation in the country. Maria, how do we reconcile these numbers about the situation in the United States and the true situation on ground?
Well, the numbers are clear. I know there's been a lot of speculation around the accuracy of the numbers. But again, if you look at what's happening in the hospitals, if you look at the number of individuals that are in ICUs, if you look at the number of individuals that are recovering and those who are leaving hospitals and that are not recovering and that are dying as a result of COVID-19, it's clear that this has a major impact on the United States and that the United States clearly still has a long way to go to address the COVID-19 devastation that has occurred as a result of the pandemic. And so we know that the numbers are showing extremely high. And yes, there has been controversy about whether or not some of the testing was done accurately, whether some states have higher numbers than there are actual tests. But there are many states that are actually underreporting and that have more individuals that have come in contact and that have recovered or have COVID-19 than are reported as well. So there's still a lot of work to be done in the U.S., especially as it relates to really understanding how many have been impacted by this pandemic.
Maria, you mentioned testing there, and many analysts have been talking about increased testing and regular testing. That was a problem initially for the United States. Has there been any improvement on availability of test kits and testing in general?
There's been great improvement in testing. Yes, testing is far more available today than it was a few months ago. But again, one of the greatest challenges is, and they're starting to move toward not having individuals have to have a doctor's order in order to receive a test. That has obviously caused for many individuals, especially those who are lower moderate income, might not have a doctor to call, might not have a regular physician to get an order to take a test. And so that, again, has been a great challenge. But we are moving toward a lot of the community health centers providing testing, which means individuals without health insurance can come and get free tests, and they don't have to have an insurance provider to pay for their test. And so that will obviously bring a lot more equity to testing in the U.S.
The United States remains the worst hit country with more than 1.5 cases and 93,000 deaths. Yet, a lot of states, well, all the states now are reopening. Is there a planned phase for this, or are authorities playing this by ear?
There are several phased approaches. The federal government, the CDC, has had several recommendations regarding the phased approach. But again, many states are not necessarily following. There's a phase 1, 2, and 3. And in phase 1, there's minimal openings that are allowed during that initial phase. But some states are, obviously looking at the economic issues that exist. We have the worst unemployment rates, the greatest unemployment rate since the Great Depression. You have many individuals we're at a time where college students are graduating, so they're looking to receive jobs. And so economics has taken, unfortunately, in some cases, a higher precedence. And so many states have yielded to the economics and yielded to the protesters that are asking for the country to reopen in specific states, because we are looking at all 50 states in some regard, whether it's partial reopening or full reopening, have made attempts to reopen.
All right, then, Maria Bird, our Washington, D.C. correspondent, speaking to us there. Thank you again, Maria, and do stay safe.
Thank you.
Away from the United States, at least 84 people across India and Bangladesh have been killed as super cyclone Amphan swept across coastal areas of both countries, even touching Sri Lanka. Storm Amphan struck land on Wednesday, lashing coastal areas with ferocious wind and rain. It is now weakening as it moves north into Bhutan. Rescue has been anything but easy as officials complain COVID-19 restrictions are hampering their efforts.
Thousands of trees uprooted in the gales, electricity and telephone lines brought down, and houses flattened. This is the aftermath of Cyclone Amphan, the most powerful cyclone to strike eastern India and Bangladesh in 2 decades. The storm is the first supercyclone to form in the Bay of Bengal since 1999. Though its winds had weakened by the time it struck, it was still classified as a very severe cyclone. Authorities are now racing to provide relief efforts in communities already stricken by the coronavirus, hampered in many areas by heavy rains and falling debris that has made roads impassable. COVID-19 and social distancing measures made mass evacuations more difficult, with shelters unable to be used to full capacity. At least 72 people have died in West Bengal state, including 15 in the city of Kolkata. Many of Kolkata's roads are flooded and is 14 million people without power. West Bengal Chief Minister says the devastation of Kolkata, the state capital, is a bigger disaster than COVID-19. In neighboring Bangladesh, at least 12 people have been confirmed dead. Among those killed was a 57-year-old Red Crescent volunteer in Barisal who drowned when attempting to help others to safety. Cyclones frequently batter parts of eastern India and Bangladesh between April and December, often forcing the evacuation of tens of thousands of people and causing widespread damage.
Well, we've been watching the floods in East Africa, Kenya being the most affected. Weeks of heavy rain have left many settlements submerged, with people saying this is something they have not experienced before. The floods have killed at least 200 people and displaced 40,000 more. Many are living in informal camps like the one in Kadunudu. Environmental campaigners have named climate change as one of the key factors causing the devastation. Environmentalist Greg Odogwu joins us now from Abuja to talk about the reasons behind these 2 disasters we're seeing. Mr. Odogwu, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Weather conditions are usually Mother Nature at her best, revolting against the earth. Could any of these situations, the super cyclone in India and Bangladesh and the heavy rains causing floods in Kenya, have been triggered in any way?
Well, you know that Mother Nature has its own ways and methods. And that's why these things are called meteorological phenomenon. You know, they are meteorological, they're controlled by weather, and they are phenomenon because it doesn't happen all the time. It's not normal. So there is no way we can prevent this. The only thing is that we have to look at the pattern. And looking at the pattern, that is where you get disaster preparedness earlier, and also to time all climate research to be in line with its possibilities. For instance, in the issue of cyclone in India, we know that it happened in the Bay of Bengal. Bay of Bengal historically has been a hotspot for this kind of with hurricane and typhoon, but the cyclones are the ones that happen in the Indian Ocean. So in that particular bay, it has a like of concave topography, and the surface temperature of the water makes it that it is very susceptible to this cyclone. In fact, the worst cyclone in the history of mankind was in 1970, and it was in the same place. It's called Cyclone Bola. And we are getting trouble now because it's becoming more because this problem is repetitive, because there was a cyclone there last year, that Cyclone Fani, and now there is this Amphan happening this year. And the one that was very devastating was the one that happened in 2008. So from 2008 to last year, then he's repeating this year again with, sort of give or take similar casualties. So we are worried because there's a pattern. And so we should be asking now, what is the role of climate change, working with the aim of climate change on this? And some experts have established a link that greenhouse gas causes this. So we will be looking at this picture.
All right, then, environmentalist Mr. Greg Odogwu, thank you so much for joining us on The World today to, bring more insight on that situation. Thank you for joining us on the program. Still ahead on the program. When just having fun leads you to strike gold. I bet the kids we're about to talk about would never be the same again. We'll bring you details in a moment. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. We mentioned Sri Lanka earlier in the bulletin, but they're back again, as at least 3 people have been killed and 9 others injured in a stampede in Colombo. The stampede occurred when a local businessman was handing out cash to the poor along with 5 of his associates on the eve of the last Friday before Eid. Mali Gawata, a township in the capital where the incident took place, has a large Muslim population. Police said that the 6 suspects involved in the distribution of money have been arrested for flouting coronavirus curfew and gathering crowds without taking precautions against the coronavirus. All the 3 killed were elderly women, and of the 4 injured remain critical condition at a local hospital. Currently, Colombo is under a 24-hour curfew in efforts to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. But essential public and private sector establishments, such as government offices and shops, are functioning. Sri Lanka has recorded 1,030 coronavirus infections and 9 deaths. While Australian state and territory leaders are contemplating whether to reopen internal borders, a major step in rejuvenating the country's domestic tourism industry as part of measures to ease coronavirus restrictions. The implementation of the federal plan is down to the leaders of individual states and territories who come from opposing political parties and disagree on how safe it is to allow unrestricted movement throughout the country. New South Wales State, the country's most populous, has called for all borders to be opened as a critical step to giving the ailing economy a much-needed boost. Australia has reported just over 7,000 COVID-19 infections, including 100 deaths, well below figures reported by other developed countries.
Each state will do what is best for their state. And today, here in Queensland, it is best for us that we continue to minimise movement across our domestic borders. So, of course, we're allowing people to come into Queensland for compassionate reasons and, of course, to move freight. And there are a number of other areas. But this is not the time for tourists to travel into Queensland, because one case can cause an enormous setback to our plan to open up our communities.
We won't be lectured to by the worst performing state in Australia. There are 33 times the number of active cases in New South Wales compared to Queensland. So New South Wales needs to get its act together and get its community transmission down, and we'll all be better off throughout this nation, including in Queensland. It's time for Gladys and the New South Wales government to get their act together and to start performing as well as Queensland has done on the health front.
Now, Facebook says it's tackling the spread of harmful content about the coronavirus on its platform by taking down posts and issuing warning labels amid criticism that social media companies had not done enough to counter misinformation. The company's chief executive, Mark Zuckerberg, says he's working with independent fact-checkers and had taken down thousands of pieces of content which could lead to imminent risk of physical harm and issued about 50 million warning labels. He says in the UK in particular, Facebook has removed posts spreading damaging conspiracy theories linking mobile phone technology with the coronavirus.
There's harmful misinformation that puts people in imminent risk of physical harm. So things like saying that something is a proven cure for the virus when in fact it isn't, we will take that down. And there have been hundreds of thousands of cases of things that are harmful misinformation. Another example, which I know has been very prevalent in the UK, has been 5G misinformation, which has led to some physical damage of 5G infrastructure. So we believe that is leading to imminent risk of physical harm. We take down that content. There have been hundreds of thousands of pieces of content like that.
Well, we're seeing more and more the use of technology in fighting the coronavirus. Well, Colombia's police is now using drones to detect people with high temperatures or those violating the country's coronavirus quarantine. If a drone detects someone with a potential fever, it sends the location to a medical team that seeks out the person to determine if they have symptoms of the disease. The police says the drones only detect temperatures or groupings of people who are out on the street and do not penetrate into their houses or apartments. Each drone can fly up to 30 minutes at a height of 500 meters and can get as far as 5 kilometers from the vehicle that serves as its control center. Bogota, home to some 8 million people, is more than a third of Colombia's nearly 17,000 coronavirus cases. Most parents will have come to appreciate the increasingly tricky task of keeping the kids entertained. But as the weather warms up, plenty of children will be looking to the garden for new ways to pass the time. And for two French brothers, that resulted in a valuable discovery. The parents decided to leave Paris when France imposed a lockdown and moved to a family home in the town of Vendôme, southwest of the capital. The boys, both aged about 10, asked to build a makeshift hut in the garden using branches, leaves and sheets. Their father, a businessman in his 60s, told them that they could use their late grandmother's sheets, which were in a spare room. They did, only did they not pay attention to two fairly heavy objects that fell out. They later told their fathers about it, and upon inspection of the items, called in a local auctioneer who told them the good news. They were gold bars. The bars have now been listed on the auctioneer's website with an estimated value of 40,000 euros a piece. Oh, those are two very, very lucky boys. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shoboale.